A lot of what I watched back in the day were Flash animations, and they were definitely a lot more mature than they seemed. However, one animated series stuck out. From the outside, it appeared to be a colorful kids show with cute mascot characters, but once you watch a full episode, you get a mess of blood and guts. I'm of course talking about
Happy Tree Friends.
Now, Happy Tree Friends was one of my first exposures to gore. For sure, it was definitely something that left a lasting, traumatic impact on my childhood, and I can bet many of you guys share the same experience. But what exactly was the deal with this show? Where is it now and why was it so gory? Before we answer all of those, we first have to start at the beginning. In 1988, two men named John Evershed and Deirdre O'Malley founded the company Macadais in San Francisco, California. The company would make content for tech companies and even develop two video games. In 1998, the company would shift their focus towards internet animations under the name Mondo Mini Shows or Mondo Media. Among the employees at Mondo Media, there are two to highlight: animator Ken Navarro and writer Rod Montijo. When brainstorming, they thought of the idea to make cute cuddly characters face gruesome fates, which they cracked up at. The way these characters' souls departed could be compared to something like Final Destination, which funny enough is preceded by Happy Tree Friends. According to a Reddit IMA, sweet sappy cartoons like Care Bears and the Smurfs served as heavy inspiration. Looney Tunes was also brought up in discussion, as the team wanted to give more realistic portrayals of cartoony violence, like an anvil being dropped on someone's head. Both Navarro and Montijo made a laundry list of different scenarios to put the characters in, although 40% of their ideas never made it through, and they didn't think too much about the concept. Soon Mondo was looking for more content, and the two decided it would be perfect to pitch the idea. Rhodey made a sketch on a piece of paper of a character that would soon be Shifty. He then decided to draw a rabbit on a poster who would eventually become Cuddles, and below it said, "Resistance is futile." They stuck the poster up on their workstation so that their coworkers could look at the poster and think, this could work. When they pitched the ideas to executives, they liked the idea, but they were initially confused. Of course, the executives eventually accepted the idea. Joined by animator Aubrey Ankrum, an opportunity to make a pilot short was given in 1999. This short was titled Banjo Frenzy. It featured a dinosaur who would serve as the basis for Lumpy, as well as three forest animals who would eventually become Giggles, Cuddles, and Toothy. To summarize the plot of this short, the dinosaur would play the banjo only for his string to snap, causing the other characters to laugh at him. In a fit of rage, the dinosaur would brutally unalive the animals, yet the heads of one of the characters would wake up and bite the dinosaur, leading the dino to go crazy, and then the episode ends. With this being a pilot and all, both the animation and writing were a lot weaker and primitive compared to the clean aesthetic show it ended up becoming. If I'm being honest, I prefer the dino design rather than the moose design that Lumpy has now. Afterwards, Mondo Media would give them a whole new team of animators and writers, paving the way for Happy Tree Friends. The first episode of Happy Tree Friends was titled Spinfanonia, and it focused on Lumpy's spinning Cuddles, Toothy, and Giggles on a merry-go-round before everything goes horribly wrong. Of course, this properly introduced the characters mentioned and the whole theme of innocent mayhem. Now, the actual date of the show's debut is debated, but it's somewhere between 1999 and 2000. Originally, the show was supposed to be on Sony's video hosting site, pop.com, as well as another unknown website, but nothing came through for either or. Happy Tree Friends would then be hosted on MM's official site. Not only that, the show had also appeared on other video sharing sites, such as Newgrounds and YouTube, as well as various TV networks worldwide. The show was already an instant success, and because of the use of Adobe Flash, episodes could be made at an accelerating rate. However, in 2002, the dot-com burst would happen, halting production and creating a blockade for both the show and its team. To combat this, the creators had the idea to put the show on DVD. In February of 2002, the first Happy Tree Friends DVD, First Blood, would be released, with a retail version releasing in 2003. The DVD contained previously released episodes, but also had bonus episodes and exclusive content, including commentary videos. Take a look at these menu screens. Aren't they adorable? The DVDs were already a hit, and since then, multiple DVDs have been released. In 2006, an official Happy Tree Friends TV show would be announced, and then be premiered on September 25, 2006 on the G4 network. The show ran until December 25 of the same year. Afterwards, reruns of the show would be aired on MTV, as well as a few other foreign networks. The show had also appeared on Netflix up until April 15 of 2018, and has been on Crunchyroll since 2015. Does that mean Happy Tree Friends counts as an anime? anime, the show had also won multiple awards at various film festivals. Mondo Media is also quite the popular video hosting site, with it being home to shows like Dick Figures and Joe Cartoons. Okay, side note, when I saw Joe Cartoons, I had to take a double take. The art style looked so familiar to me, and I have been searching for a violent cartoon that probably scarred me more than Happy Tree Friends did. Specifically, I remember a scene with a penguin exploding, as well as a gerbil being grabbed violently. Wouldn't you know it, it was that show. It was Joe Cartoons. Happy Tree Friends' identity relies on its beloved characters, so allow me to introduce them. All of these characters are woodland animals, with mainly mammals. They all share similar body types, but have different colors and personalities. I think we should start off with Cuddles. This yellow bunny is considered to be the mascot of Happy Tree Friends. Personally, he's my favorite because I just really like his design, and I really like rabbits. Next, there's Giggles, the squirrel with a girly girl personality, and is also a recurring character in the show. She sometimes serves as the love interest for Cuddles. There's Toothy, the squirrel with an everyman personality, and he's quite prominent. Lumpy is a very important character to talk about. He's appeared in the show the most, he competes with Cuddles for having one of the highest death counts, and because of his stupidity, he's ended up unaliving so many characters. Splendid is a superhero squirrel who ends up doing more harm than good. His character was born out of the creator's love for comics. Now Sniffles is described as a brainy anteater. His whole shtick is that he's intelligent, but because of his lack of common sense, gets the other characters caught in terrible situations. Another one of my favorites is Flaky, mainly because of her design. Her personality could be described as calm and timid. There was always speculation on her gender, but the creators confirmed that she is a girl. Nutty is a very honorable character to note. If the candy attached to him and his off-putting pupils don't make it obvious, he has a very insane sugar addiction. It's at a point where he'll cause the other characters' demises in pursuit for a sweet taste of that glucose. Then there's Lifty and Shifty, which Shifty is the one with the hat. They're kleptomaniacs. I don't think there's much else to say. I mean, they're literally raccoons. Russell's a very fun character to talk about. He's a sea otter with a pirate appearance, and he has a love for water-related sports. And of course, how could we not talk about the fan favorite Flippy? This military veteran is one of the kindest and sweetest characters in the whole show, but his split personality Flickpea is the complete opposite. Because of his PTSD, anything that reminds him of war causes him to switch and unalive the other characters. He unintentionally has the highest body count in the whole show, and no, not that kind. He rarely appears so that the gag doesn't get repetitive. The creators thought the idea of having a character with PTSD flip out was hilarious. Then there's Pop, Club, The Mole, Disco Bear, Mime, Cromarmot, Lammy, Handy, Petunia, and a bunch of other side characters you don't have to remember. Like I said, I have a couple favorites, and then there's characters I extremely disliked. I always hated Lumpy from the start, and when re-watching the show, I found myself to be annoyed by characters like the Mole and Sniffles. I mean, that was probably the whole point of their characters. I have a huge soft spot for mascot characters. Like, you've seen me wear clothing with a Doraemon and Snoopy on them before in previous videos, and I think Happy Tree Friends has a lot to do with that. Even if the cute mascot characters end up becoming puddles of blood, the characters would be depicted as children doing childish things. But later on, the age concept was dropped, so their ages are left ambiguous, with the exception of a few characters where their age is important to them. Also, none of the characters really talk, just a bunch of noises, and there aren't any canon romances. A character would be paired with another just for the sake of an episode. Each episode follows a very formulaic premise, and there really isn't any plot or continuity to the show. Every episode starts the same way, with the intro credits having the aesthetic that resembles that of a children's book. The theme song would play, which is sang by the various voice actors of the show. The title for each episode is always a pun on whatever situation the characters are in. At the beginning of every episode, the characters would just do basic everyday things, but then get into a situation that escalates into violence, leading to the losses of many characters. Yet, the way these losses were depicted would go to extreme lengths, like losing eyeballs and getting dismembered. A fan asked if there were any rules with the depictions, and the creators responded with this:
"No guns. Not that we're against it, it's just too easy. We'd rather be more creative and try and have Flippy somebody with a flower. It's funnier and more unexpected, not overly situations. We want to keep the world innocent, which makes contracting the violence even more shocking and hopefully funnier. In our minds, all Disco Bear want to do with the girls is kiss them. It's like they're all 5 years old. Nothing too new or technologically advanced. Same as above, we want to keep the world stuck somewhere around the 50s to the 70s. An idealized golden age, if you will. That's why the tech in the world is very old. Not scatological stuff, same as guns. Not that we're above poop humor, in fact, there is some in the show. It's just a little too easy. The deaths are more accidental, with the exception of Flippy. We've found that it's funnier if their well-meaning intentions go horribly awry.
The episode would end the same way it started, with the picture book aesthetic and the theme song playing. Then the next episode would start with the characters unharmed as if nothing happened. How long each episode was would determine how many characters would appear, so that they'd get their proper spotlight. Just because a character passed away in one episode and hasn't come back since, that doesn't mean the rest is permanent. Most episodes of the internet series were 3 minutes. As for the TV show, every episode is half an hour long, comprising of multiple segments. There are 5 seasons of the internet show with 66 episodes, while the TV show has 13 episodes, split into 39 segments. One of the episodes I vividly remember was Wrong Side of the Track. That one had the show's typical shenanigans happen on a roller coaster, and I think that episode is why I was so afraid of roller coasters growing up. Another episode I remember pretty well was Once Upon a Time, which was just a recreation of Jack and the Beanstalk, but with the Happy Tree Friends characters, and of course, the typical violent shenanigans. Over time, I was exposed to more horror and violent media, so I've become pretty desensitized to fictional gore. Fast forward to now where I decide to rewatch the show, and I could only get through 2 hours of it. At first, I thought the show had its funny moments, but nothing that had me burst out laughing. Just a simple, heh, for me. I genuinely think the show is visually appealing before a drop of blood shows up. There was also the nostalgia factor that was making me enjoy the show a lot more than it would have. I didn't really have much of a reaction to the gory scenes. To be honest, the repetitive formula had me really bored. I'll use the same description a lot of other people use to describe this show. It's just cheap shock value. Nothing more, nothing less. You knew what to expect, and you could really tell the staff was running out of ideas later on. Initially, I did enjoy the Flippy PTSD rampages. It's the same thing when John Wick takes down a bunch of men by himself. It's oddly satisfying, and there aren't any moral repercussions. But even then, I eventually got bored of the whole PTSD gag. This isn't a show meant to be taken seriously, because the creators of the show don't even take it seriously. Plus, Happy Tree Friends came at an age where being edgy was the norm for Flash animations. Happy Tree Friends is labeled as TV-14 in the US and was rated as TVMA during its time on Netflix. The website has multiple warnings that the show is not for kids, and the episodes themselves contained warnings as well, but that doesn't stop children from watching the show or parents from complaining. When asked about the funniest complaint they'd receive, Ken Navarro responded with this.
Man, there's so many. Hate mail is actually one of my favorite things to read. Most of the time, they're just angry rants with very bad grammar, punctuation, and spelling, and they rarely make any sense. I remember one letter from an angry mom that told us she would rather put her child in front of an oncoming truck than make them watch HTF, and they call us monsters. One of the most memorable is a person from France who called us long distance and left a message on our answering machine to work, ranting about how horrible the show is and what terrible people we were. Right before he hung up, he said, "You are
A parent would complain about the show in a letter to the Washington Post after she saw her 6-year-old son watching the show. I want to highlight this quote from the article. Joshua turned to me with a sheepish grin. He clearly had a sense that I wasn't happy about his new friends, but he couldn't have known what I was really thinking, which was this. I'm a longtime journalist who reveres the First Amendment, and I live in California's liberal bastion of Marin County, yet I would readily skip my next yoga class to march with right-wing fundamentalists in a cultural war against Happy Tree Friends. The author then talks about how Happy Tree Friends could make someone aggressive, and Evershed made the point of comparing the show to Tom and Jerry. Eventually, the show would catch the attention of the Russian Media Culture Protection Department, who warned the 2x2 TV channel to remove it off air because the show promotes violence and brutality, harms the psychic health and moral development of children, and attacks social morality, which all violate license agreement. The channel then denied these accusations. Later in 2021, the district court in St. Petersburg banned the series, claiming that it contains elements of cruelty, is designed in a style common for American animation, and watching the animated series undoubtedly harms the young children's spiritual and moral education and development and contradicts the humanistic nature of upbringing inherent in Russia. Kids shouldn't be exposed to gore at a young age, since it adds a lot of unwanted stress to them and can even have some lasting effects. Being exposed to such material at a young age could potentially lead someone down a dark path, though Happy Tree Friends shouldn't be the main thing to blame for someone being violent. In my own opinion, there really isn't much of a need to ban the cartoon. A lot of it has to do with adult supervision and making sure their kid stays safe on the internet. Like mentioned before, there are ratings and multiple warnings for the show, and sure, any kid could look past these, but it's still the responsibility of the adult to look at these things and think, maybe my kid shouldn't be looking at this. Now, I did talk about multiple seasons of the internet series in the TV show, but there's technically more seasons of the show. Note that the content here is not like your typical Happy Tree Friends episode. First, let's talk about blurbs, which were edited versions of the original episodes that had speech boxes over them. Every box was filled with either a joke, a random statement, or fun facts relating to a scene. So far, 29 of these exist. There were also 13 episodes called Smoochies. They were interactive videos revolving around different characters, and they sometimes had themes that relate to their personalities or a holiday. Each Smoochie had 3 options, which always resulted in the character's demise. Think of it like a twisted version of a Tamagotchi. They were accessed on either the Mondo Media website or on the First Blood DVD. 10 holiday message episodes called Kringles also exist, and they were pretty much parodies of animated greeting cards. A spin-off series called Kapow also exists, with episodes dedicated to Flippy, Splendid, and Buddhist Monkey. The one that focused on Flippy, titled Operation Tiger Bomb, was honestly really impressive. It was in a whole different art style, and it took place during Flippy's time in the war. It felt like I was watching an animated version of Rambo. Then there's Happy Tree Friends Break, which were shortened versions of Happy Tree Friends episodes, and were originally produced for the G4 network. For Valentine's Day, Love Bites would be released with short episodes that revolve around a male and a female character having a romantic moment before everything goes awry. Each Love Bite had a message that related to the short. Now, isn't that clever? And finally, there are the irregular episodes. The original Banjo Frenzy pilot is in here. There were also the YouTube 101 videos. The first one is titled Subscriptions, and just teaches users about basic features from YouTube's old UI, like the rating system. Everything about this video is so funny to me. There's no gore, it's extremely outdated, and the subplot is just Cuddles being a massive simp. Now, the copyright one is a particularly controversial one. YouTubers who received copyright strikes would end up having to watch this video, which just gave a lesson on copyright in a very gentrified manner. This of course upset many users, and the video's dislikes outweighed the likes by a lot before it was taken down. I want to talk about this claw machine one because I thought it was so adorable, and it was the one time I was praying that something bad would not happen. To my dismay, it ended in traditional Happy Tree Friends fashion, and now my favorite hangout activity is completely ruined. How could I not talk about the Fall Out Boy music video? Fall Out Boy is one of my favorite bands, yet I somehow forgot this existed. The music video was for the song Carpal Tunnel of Love, and it was for the band's 2007 album, Infinity on High, an album I own on CD. Both the band and the HTF team had a mutual connection, and through that, they made something work. It was fully animated and featured many of the main cast. It even had Happy Tree Friends versions of the band members. The whole plot focuses on a love story between Cuddles and Giggles, with outside forces, specifically Lumpy, just ruining everything. Typical hijinks happen, and the characters end up dying, which included the Fall Out Boy members too. The music video ends with Cuddles and Giggles being impaled by a pipe and sharing one final kiss. I genuinely love this. The love story was adorable, and it was just a combination of the two most 2000s things ever. I think a show that's worth mentioning is D_Void. This show was released on October 25 of 2015. The premise revolved around animals in space losing their lives, and was also made by Warren Graff and Navarro, which leads to this show being viewed as a Happy Tree Friends spin-off of sorts. Considering the show hasn't been updated for a while, it's quick to assume that it's been discontinued. Happy Tree Friends exists outside of the animations in the form of plushies, comics, wallets, clothing, coin banks, and video games. The Mondo Media website had many flash games, and they were your typical low-effort, time-waster games. Games I would have spent hours of my day playing if I knew these existed. Unfortunately, due to Flash being shut down, most of these games are lost to time. Mobile games have also existed alongside the show as well. There were some that were also time-waster, low-effort games. Their more recent mobile game, Dead Eye Derby, is still available. The goal of this game is to shoot another character on a moving cart with a slingshot. You have to make use of a power meter, and you also have to tilt your phone to aim. Unfortunately, the game makes use of microtransactions. A Happy Tree Friends game titled False Alarm would be released on Steam and the Xbox 360 in 2007. The game is now hard to obtain, and it could only be downloaded through complicated means. Yeah, I don't think this game is worth having your computer hacked by some random Russian guy. Watching gameplay of this game was a total snooze fest, and I had to look at the wiki to see what this game is about. It's basically just having a bunch of characters trying to survive multiple levels. Happy Tree Friends related DLC would be released for the top-down shooter Crack Pet Show on September 27th, 2023. From the looks of it, everything looks very high-paced, and I'll need to give it a go after this video. Actually, the DLC spawned in at a very significant time for Happy Tree Friends, but I'll get into that later. Just like all things, Happy Tree Friends has a fandom, and it's honestly not as bad as I imagined it to be. There's your typical things like ships, OCs, and fanfictions. Hell, there are even fan games, like this Mario-inspired fan game. This one's called Happy Tree Friends Adventures. Of course, there is that small minority that does tend to ruin things for the majority, but I haven't seen anything too bad without any deep diving. I also want to mention the many videos and creators dedicated to Happy Tree Friends. I saw one about an unofficial Happy Tree Friends bar that existed in Hungary for 10 years. If you'd like some more Happy Tree Friends content, go check those guys out.
Happy Tree Friends has had multiple hiatuses in its lifespan. One from June 2006 to October 2007, and another in October 2010 to December 2011. These happened because of side projects related to Happy Tree Friends that were going on at the same time. March 2014 would be the start of another hiatus, and this would happen because of multiple reasons. Void D was being worked on, and there wasn't really any request by Mondo Media to make more episodes. An official movie was also said to be in production, which halted the production of regular episodes. The movie was mentioned by staff members Warren Gaff and Ken Pontac at a convention. Navarro has also acknowledged the movie, but his tweet said that it is yet to start production, and if it has, that he has no involvement with it. It's speculated that the movie has been delayed indefinitely or scrapped altogether. Honestly though, how's a movie supposed to work for Happy Tree Friends anyways? It would just run into the problem that most cartoon movies have of being an hour-long episode. There would be no new Happy Tree Friends content for a while, with the exception of hints toward future episodes. Those episodes would be released in December 2016, ending the hiatus. Ken Navarro said in a tweet that sales were okay, but fell below what was expected. This makes sense because the show was already starting to lose popularity at this point, and there just wasn't any content for a while. After that, the show was sent into an even longer hiatus, digging the show in an ever deeper hole. The COVID-19 pandemic likely had a role in this hiatus. No new Happy Tree Friends content would come out until 2022, when NFTs were announced. Okay, get it, I guess. These NFTs were basically just 3D animated versions of the characters that you could purchase. This upset many fans, and they had every right to be. I could go all day and explain what's wrong with NFTs because they're NFTs, and this was the first thing that fans would see after years of absence. After more silence, Happy Tree Friends had a sudden return in July of 2023, promoting the new Crack Pet Show DLC, with an irregular episode promoting the DLC. In February of 2024, Mondo announced a new membership to watch Happy Tree Friends for $3 a month. Productions of new episodes would be started if enough members join. Thanks, Case.
On October 10 of 2024, the unthinkable happened. The channel for Dumb Ways to Die would announce an official collab with Happy Tree Friends. This was a surprise to many, including myself. When it comes to gory cartoons, there's two I think of: Happy Tree Friends and Dumb Ways to Die. The collaboration would release 6 days later. Our favorite animal characters are on a train with the Dumb Ways to Die characters, and in typical Happy Tree Friends fashion, things go awry and everything gets all bloody. For a Happy Tree Friends episode, especially one that released for the first time in years, this was really enjoyable. A collab like this was absolutely needed, and I was getting worried the show was going to end on a bad note. Perhaps we can see Happy Tree Friends go back to its former glory. As a kid, I wanted nothing to do with Happy Tree Friends after it initially traumatized me, and when I decided to rewatch the show, I wasn't exactly having the time of my life. But as I started to do research and learn more about the show, I started to fall in love with it and appreciate it a lot more. Happy Tree Friends had a lasting impact on Gen Z and the internet as a whole, for better and for worse. Whether it be Flippy, Cuddles, or Lumpy, these characters serve as mascots for the golden age of the internet, a time when everything had so much passion and personality. I honestly wish the best for this show, and I want to see where it goes in the future. Also, shout out to Help Gage. Go check out his video on Happy Tree Friends as well. Take care of yourselves, and of course, as usual, please have yourselves a damn good one.